What's going on, everybody? Respawn Gentleman here. So today's video is going to be a review for Dying Light 2. Now, I've been meaning to get this out for quite some time and just haven't gotten a chance to do it yet. So let's dive right into it. So to start off, we're going to talk about the story a little bit. Now, there will be spoilers for those who haven't finished the game, so you have been warned. I'll leave the timestamps down in the description below if you want to skip past the story and don't want to hear anything about that. But basically, so the story is that you play as Aiden Caldwell and you're looking for your sister. It's something that you've been trying to find her for like 15 years and you just have never found her. There's information that she's located inside the city called Villador, and you go there to investigate. When Aiden gets there, he just kind of basically gets involved in all of the local issues happening, because it turns out essentially that the main person involved with Aiden's sister missing is actually involved with all those events. So all sorts of different things happen that lead him to a confrontation with this person named Waltz. You know, you find out at the very end that Aiden's sister that he's looking for is actually not his sister, but Waltz's daughter. So he thought that was his sister the whole time, and it just wasn't. To me, the story overall, there's nothing like really special about it. It's kind of a typical zombie game story. There's people who are infected and they're, trying to keep other people from being infected and things like that. And then, the whole, looking for the sister storyline, there's that, but it didn't like feel anything special to me personally. I think especially at the end when Mia dies, regardless of what you do, it just feels like the whole story is basically pointless, because depending on your choices, in all honesty, Aiden doesn't necessarily grow as a character. Whereas if you compare it to Dying Light 1, Kyle Crane, you can see at the beginning he grew as a character throughout the story, and whereas at the beginning he was the GRE's lackey and just kind of doing whatever they wanted him to, at the end he just basically flipped a finger towards the GRE and said, "No, you guys aren't. I'm not doing nothing for you guys no more. Y'all are terrible." And Aiden, he didn't really change that much throughout the story. It was all basically the same. And like I said, that also kind of depends on your choices a little bit, but that's one of my complaints about the story, is that it didn't necessarily feel anything special. It felt like everything you did, no matter what, was really for no reason whatsoever. And that's one thing that I find extremely frustrating in games, is to just find out that all your choices, all of the things that led you up to this point, basically didn't matter. So that's kind of my thoughts on the story. It could be better, could be way better. It's not absolutely terrible, but that is the way it is, and that's kind of how I feel about that. Now let's get into the gameplay a little bit. So one thing I want to talk about, kind of before I get into how the gameplay really goes and stuff like that, is the glitches. There is a ton of bugs and glitches in this game, and there has been since day one. Which, speaking of day one, they had to put out a patch that fixed like 1,000 different bugs, which is insane. Now a lot of those glitches are still in the game, which is very unfortunate. You've got stuff where zombies won't spawn properly, or items won't spawn, or you can't use a basic feature of the game, or sometimes you'll fly out of the map, and sometimes you'll just die randomly, or you'll die and not be able to do anything about it, or not sleep. There's a absolute ton of glitches that still need to be fixed and worked on. It's just, there's so much, and that's what's one of the most unfortunate things, is how many bugs there are. Now granted, I will say not everyone's going to experience these bugs. For me personally, I haven't experienced very many bugs at all, so my playthrough has been much different than a lot of other people's, and so that's why I don't necessarily think the bugs are too bad, at least from my perspective, just because I haven't experienced them. So I've been able to enjoy the game more fully without having to deal with these game-stopping bugs constantly. I mean, they've been putting one thing that Techland's been doing great is they've been putting out a ton of patches, and every time something new happens, they work their hardest to get it fixed as quickly as possible. So that's one thing I do want to commend them for, is they're fixing those bugs, which is fantastic. It just is unfortunate that there are so many bugs still in the game. Now onto let's talk about the parkour a little bit. So the parkour in the game, I feel, is actually better than the first game. It's more of a realistic parkour, which some people don't like, some people like it. I personally do. I think it makes your movement feel more natural. And now granted, there's sometimes your character moves in weird ways, but for the most part, it's got a more natural feel to it, which I do like. You know, it has more parkour moves available than you did in the first game, so it allows you to kind of traverse the environment in more ways than you could have before. But parkour is also one of the downsides right now, because with the way that it's set up, you basically can just stay on the rooftops the entire game, except for sections where it forces you to go onto the street for like missions and stuff. Other than that, like, you can just stay on the rooftops doing parkour, which is fun, but it also kind of limits what you're able to do as far as combat wise, which we'll get into here in just a minute. I kind of wish that, you know, they did have some of the animations from the E3 demo, because they were super awesome, especially the one where, you know, you jump onto like a sign or some kind of banner and then you use a knife to like slide down. It was super awesome, and it's something that I really wish that they would have included in the game, but I also understand, you know, some things just didn't quite work out, and that's understandable. But at the same time, like I said, parkour is great. It feels nice. It's one of the best parkour systems that I've played, and I haven't played too many parkour games, but of the ones that I have, you know, it feels the best for sure. But there are some minor disappointments to it, like the fact that you can skip just about everything in the game and do absolutely no fighting just by sticking to the rooftops. Which, let's get into the combat right now. So the combat also feels so much better than it did in Dying Light 1, especially against human enemies. So if you've ever played Dying Light 1, you'll know the frustration with human enemies. They will sit there. I've done this myself. I have sat there swinging at them like 15-20 times, and they dodge it every single time. And it just, Dying Light 1 ended up resorting to just pulling out a gun and shooting the human enemies, just because I didn't want to deal with it. Dying Light 2, they made this where they don't dodge as much, which is great. And then you have like the parries and different things different types of attacks you can do, which kind of opens up your combat. So you can parry them, which stuns them a little bit. You can, you know, tackle them to the ground. You can throw them off to the side. You can drop kick them in the face. You know, there's so many things you can do. So personally, I really love the combat system in the second one over the first one. I just feel like they went a bit more in depth with things you could do during combat, and they made it feel, you know, more engaging during combat, rather than, okay, well, I'm just gonna pull up my gun and shoot the enemy, like most people ended up doing with the first game. So that's one thing I will say. I do love the combat a lot in this game. But one of my complaints about the combat is, like I said before, using parkour, you can skip past almost every single encounter in the entire game. You can go through the game without fighting hardly any enemy whatsoever, which is not necessarily an issue, but it feels strange that, you know, they put all of these enemies and zombies just in your way, and they're like, oh, you know, during the day and nighttime, you know, they're all over the place, when you can just skip past them. You know, speaking of nighttime, there's a vast difference between Dying Light 1 nighttime and Dying Light 2 nighttime. So in Dying Light 1, you had the roaming volatiles, which were terrifying and very hard to kill, especially, you know, early on in the game. They got a little bit easier, you know, whenever you had different tools and stuff, but it was still difficult, because a lot of times you'd have like 4 or 5 of them jumping on you at once, and it was terrifying. With Dying Light 2, they eventually added that to the game, which is nice, but it's not quite the same. They don't necessarily roam around as much as stay in one place, and then if you happen to walk by them, then they'll chase you. That's about it. And then it's usually still only like 1, maybe 2 volatiles at a time, which can easily be taken out. They are like, volatiles are almost a joke in this game, depending on, you know, your build and setup. I mean, if you're early on in the game, they're, you know, difficult for sure, but just using like a UV bar and then, you know, a maxed out weapon, you can take them down like within a few seconds. Like, they're not hard to deal with at all. But again, that kind of goes with the nighttime being much less scary than it was in the first game. And so because of that, sometimes you don't even want to deal with the special infected, or you don't want to deal with the howlers that, you know, spawn all these enemies around you. So a lot of times you just stick to the rooftops, avoid fighting altogether, which I feel like it kind of detracts from the nighttime experience, not having, you know, this sense of, oh crap, I might die because it's nighttime, you know, like the first one did. So that's something that, you know, I really wish that they will improve upon in the game, like maybe make nighttime a bit more dangerous, include more enemies on rooftops. I think that's something that's like, oh hey, you got off the street, but there's all this stuff up here, so it kind of makes you gauge like, okay, well, should I go to the rooftops and try to deal with these crazy enemies, or should I stay on the ground and deal with, you know, the mass number of enemies, and just kind of make that a choice, which I think would be way more interesting and more fun. So maybe that's something they can do, but for right now, nighttime is basically a joke in the game. You can just kind of run past everything. Let's talk about a little bit of new content that's been added to the game. So one thing for sure that Techland has been saying is that they're going to be supporting this game for 5+ years, which I don't doubt. They supported the first game for 7 years and constantly adding new stuff all the time. And then eventually they said, hey, you know what? Now we're done. We've released everything. I mean, that was only like about a month or two ago from the time of recording this video, but still, like, they supported it for 7 years, which is incredible. So I feel like they will do that again. And we've gotten a lot of content. You know, we've gotten like the community events, which at right now seem to be weekly events, which is actually great. And then, you know, we have the new photo mode, which is actually really fun. I do love using photo mode in games where you can just pause the game, take some crazy screenshots. I do wish there was some more features in photo mode, like maybe being able to change the time of day. So like you can maybe get like this awesome, you know, daytime shot of a volatile or something like that. I think that would be amazing. Just daytime slider. That's like one of the only things that I want to add in the game is a day and night slider for the photo mode. But other than that, like it's got a lot of different options. It's really fun to use as well. Another thing they added New Game Plus mode, which I know was a requested feature for quite some time in the game. And when they added it, one thing I'm glad about is the fact that you can do it as many times as you want, which is fantastic. One thing I do find disappointing, which I think a lot of people agree with this, is that they do take away some of your tools. Now, I understand that it's for story progress and they don't want people kind of sequence breaking the game and doing things before they're supposed to, but at the same time, there should be ways around that to where people can start a new game and then immediately be able to use their grappling hook and use their paraglider just to get around, because they're so much fun to use that limiting people to the paraglider being halfway through the game and the grappling hook being literally almost at the very end of the game. There's literally like 2 to 3 missions, maybe 5 missions. I can't remember off the top of my head, but after you get the grappling hook, you're basically done with the game at that point. So, you know, if you're just going through the main story, it's something that just feels like we should have had this earlier, you know? And that's one thing that's I think is disappointing about New Game Plus. I really want them to hopefully fix that, like maybe in a future update include the ability to keep those tools just for people to have fun. I mean, it's a New Game Plus, so you've already beaten the story, you've experienced it the way that Techland intended you to experience it. So let's just have fun with a New Game Plus. Just let them do whatever they want. That's what I'm thinking. But I understand also at the same time if it does break the game and make it not possible to do things. But that's one thing I do wish. So another piece of content that they added was the Chapter 1 content called In the Footsteps of a Night Runner, which has mixed feelings about with a lot of different people, especially me. But one thing I will say is that according to the roadmap, it is pretty interesting that it looks like we're going to be getting multiple chapters, since they said that chapter 2 is going to be coming out around September. So that's something to look forward to. Maybe we'll keep like getting chapters every so often. I don't know if it's going to be a continuous thing. I have certain thoughts on chapters, which I'll have a video specifically all about chapters and kind of what I want to see with those later date. But one of my issues with the chapter system as it is, first of all, I love the fact that they have a new like agent rank system. I think that's really cool. You go and you have this special vendor that sells items you can only get from him, and then you know, you have specific missions that you do for him which are repeatable, and it's really cool. The problem with it is that even though, yes, you do get daily and weekly bounties, which, you know, does give you more stuff to do in the game, once you reach level 10 with the chapter 1 vendor, it's basically pointless to level up after that, because leveling up gives you a token, which is great. There's no reason to continue leveling up. There's no rewards for getting higher than level 10. Once you reach level 10, you've unlocked everything you're able to buy from him. So it's easier and more efficient to just do the elite mission over and over and over again, because you can complete it in about 2 minutes with a guide I'll have linked in the description below if you want to check that out, and you know, get a token that way. And so in 30 minutes you can have the same amount of tokens that you would normally take you a whole week to get by doing the bounties. So there's really no reason to do the bounties level up, because all they do is give you a higher rank with him, and when you rank up you get a token. That's literally it. So I feel like that's something that definitely needs to be improved upon if they're going to kind of continue with the chapter system. But again, I'll talk more about that in another video I have coming up. Now, on the subject of new content, they have delayed the first DLC, which a lot of people were disappointed because we were originally supposed to get it in June. According to the first roadmap that they released, it said, hey, June 2022, we're getting the first paid story DLC. Everybody was excited about it. I was excited about it. There were so many theories and stuff out there. As it got closer, I think it was in May, they decided, hey, you know what? Actually, no, it wasn't in May. It was actually in June. They just said, hey, you know what? We delayed this. We're like, oh, okay. So, you know, they delayed it till September, which a lot of people were disappointed about. But one bright side is that there have been a lot of potential leaks for the content. There's been various different YouTubers that have covered it. There are people who've made mods for it, which looks like this like opera house type arena DLC thing that we'll be getting, which honestly, if those leaks turn out to be true, it's gonna be really cool, I'm not gonna lie. But I really hope that the first DLC just kind of brings people back to the game, and it's something that is actually gonna hold people there, because a lot of people now are playing the game, they're beating the story, they're doing side quests and stuff, and then they're just not wanting to continue with the game because there's not really anything else to do. So that's my hope for the first story DLC. When it releases, I really hope that they actually, you know, come out with something that's, you know, just really sticks to landing, so to speak. Now, overall, I mean, I absolutely love Dying Light 2. Again, it's something I'm going to be covering and playing for the life of the game, so you know, that just shows how much I enjoy the game. I've played it for 350 plus hours. I still go back to it almost all the time, just jumping in, run around, doing things. It's a ton of fun to play. So if you haven't picked up Dying Light yet, or Dying Light 2 yet, excuse me, then I would definitely check it out. It is so fun to get. If you're not sure about if you want to get it or not, there's a lot of times where it does go on sale. I've seen it go on sale a few times already. So definitely, I would say maybe wait for a sale if you're unsure, but I think it's definitely worth it because it is so much fun, and I know for sure that it's going to get much better. Because one thing I do want to say real quick here is that the way that Dying Light 2 is currently at 5 months after release is much further and much better of a game than what Dying Light 1 was at 5 months after release. And so we saw how Dying Light 1 turned out, you know, with the following DLC and everything after that. It just turned into this crazy amazing game, and I know that Techland is going to do the same with this game. So I would highly recommend getting it. If you're not sure, check it out on a sale, because they do happen fairly frequently. I think there was a sale that just ended not that long ago from the time of recording this video, but I would definitely check it out if you get a chance. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more Dying Light content, make sure to like and subscribe. I also stream here on YouTube every Wednesday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Time, as well as Fridays on Twitch at 6 p.m. Central Time as well. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.